Hi, my name is Olivia, but I go by Livy. I'm a sophomore here at Waldorf, and I'm a history major with a track in political science and a minor in communications. I'm also from Minneapolis, Minnesota. My paper is about the freedom rides during the civil rights movement. My main argument is that the freedom rides were a pivotal turning point during civil rights history. Some major things I brought up have been freedom rides' relations with the NAACP and MLK. Something that I learned was that there had actually been multiple successful freedom ride stops done before the attacks. This helps me put together more pushing points for the civil rights era as I continue to study it. This has opened up the doors to more events that happened during this movement.
Hello, my name is Joseph Bauer from Rochester, Minnesota, and I'm a junior in the history program. My project is a deep dive into Western law codes with the hopes to show that power doesn't create laws, but just enforces them using 5 main examples. In chronological order of the codes of when the codes were implemented, first the Athenian Constitution, the first democracy and how it was formed, followed by the Justinian Code. After the Justinian, the main code touched on is the Gratium Decretum. However, this covers more theocratic laws than just simply the decretum itself. This leads into English common law and finally American common law. After my time at Waldorf, I hope to move on to law school. A paper focusing on laws and their formations is really just right up my alley then. I did learn a lot from this project too, and maybe this can speak to the weaknesses of the paper, but as I gained more information, the thesis itself changed. Coming at it from the beginning, my thesis was along the lines of governments make laws, yet some laws are still above the government. How does this paradox work? While researching my paper, however, in most cases, including the 5 law codes selected, the government itself generally didn't actually make or write the laws. Well, thanks for listening, and that is my project.
My name is Chloe. I'm a sophomore majoring in biology and I'm from Obertly. My paper was about the Dust Bowl. I focused on how it affected people, animals, and the environment and what the people did to try to change this. There's been many acts that have been discussed throughout the paper that were put into place to either help the people make it through the Dust Bowl or stop the Dust Bowl. I also talked about illnesses that have come from the Dust Bowl, like pneumonia, which had killed off many people during this time. The last thing I talked about was how the farm animals suffered throughout the Dust Bowl. They were not able to protect themselves so many of them either died off or were sold so that the original owner could have money to be able to buy food to feed their children. I picked this topic because I wanted something that had more of a scientific feel to it, and the Dust Bowl had to do with the environment. I knew I would stay interested in it throughout the semester if I was able to learn and write about the environment. I learned a lot about it also, especially about farming and how important topsoil really is to grow crops. Since the topsoil is being blown off the farm, this is a lot of what made the Dust Bowl happen. They had to find out how to pick out the right topsoil, and I also was able to figure out how this was done. They originally were using cheap soil to save money since they did not know much about it. Good soil should stick together, kind of like clay. It should also have good water retention. They did not know that these were the type of things to look for in soil. If they had known this, then they could have possibly avoided the Dust Bowl from happening altogether.
Hi, I'm Morgan Sweeney, a sophomore here at Waldorf University majoring in Social Studies Ed, and I'm from Hastings, Minnesota. I knew I wanted to research something about the Navy. My grandpa served in the Navy during Vietnam, and my great-grandfather during World War II. After some talking to Dr. Mason, I decided I wanted to write my paper on the Sullivan brothers, 5 brothers from Waterloo, Iowa, who enlisted into the Navy shortly after Pearl Harbor. Public memory plays a key role in this as well. The legacy the brothers left behind is something we cannot forget. My paper started out as somewhat of a chronological timeline before and after Pearl Harbor, tying in the Sullivan brothers when it was right. This led me to my main argument about halfway through my paper. My claim is that the Sullivan brothers changed what it means to be in the Navy, left an impact like no one has before. I learned a lot about the brothers along the way. One of the most interesting things I learned about them was they loved motorcycle racing. I think in situations like this, you tend to forget that behind the war heroes are just people like you and me.
Hi, my name is Nicholas and I am from Ackley, Iowa. I am a junior and I'm majoring in secondary education. In my paper, I researched the events that led up to the 80s farm crisis and the devastating effects it had on Iowa farmers. Also, I took a perspective of agriculture in the Soviet Union to help give an understanding to why they would cancel the grain deal. The purpose of this paper is to show how the crisis would be a major blow to an industry that had once been an American dream, but now is a dying American way of life. I chose to write about this event as I've always grown up hearing stories about the crisis and how it changed the lives of so many people. I also took a deep dive into Nikita Khrushchev's 1959 visit to rural southern Iowa and how reporters would end up chasing him through a cornfield.
Hi, my name is Romello Hudson. I am a junior at Waldorf University. I am majoring in history. I'm from Sioux City, Iowa, and mine is about why did very few people stand up to Hitler and the Nazi regime? What was going through their mind, and why was they standing up to Hitler and the Nazi party when everyone else was letting it happen? The reason why they were doing what they were standing up to Hitler and the Nazi regime, one couple started to stand up because their son died in the attack of France. One was doing it because her fiance was sending her letters what they were doing, and her dad was sent to a camp. I have always learned about the people that hated Hitler and the Nazis, but they didn't do anything. Who are the people that actually stood up to Hitler and the Nazi party? We need to not forget about these people and remember them. I learned a lot about the people that rebelled and who they were as a person and why they were doing it. They had a great reason on why they were doing it. Their reasons are the same reasons I would have done it if I was in their shoes. They knew Hitler and the Nazi party was so wrong, but they didn't sit back. They wanted to do something about it. So many people never heard of these people because we never speak about what they did.
Hello, my name is Charlie. I am a freshman majoring in musical theater, creative writing, and history, and I am from Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. I chose to write my paper about the French Revolution of 1789. Through this paper, I attempted to better understand the causes of the revolution, arguing that the leadership and figureheads in place at the time are the reason why the revolution started in 1789. I split my paper into two sections to better develop my claim. The first was a section about the economic causes exemplified by Marie Antoinette and Jacques Necker. The second was dedicated to the cultural and social causes, represented by Jean-Jacques Rousseau and King Louis XVI. I picked this topic because after doing some surface-level research in a different class, I found myself interested in learning more about the revolution and its causes, especially since this was such a pivotal event in history. Through this paper, I learned a lot more about French culture at the time. One thing I found particularly interesting was the influence the rise of the printing press had on French citizens in the decades leading up to 1789.
Hello, my name is Murad and I'm an international student from Central Asia. Currently I'm a junior majoring in business and communications. My research paper focuses on how historical graphic design principles have shaped the digital world that we live in. The main argument of my research is to show the importance of graphic design by drawing on from historical resources and applying them to modern concepts. The three major points I will be covering in my paper include the development of corporate identity, user experience and user interface design, and the creative process. I decided to do research in this field because one of my long-term goals is to master graphic design, both in theory and application. Doing research allows me to develop my understanding of historical principles, which are indispensable for the successful future of graphic design. As a result of learning about UX and UI design, I discovered how they're essential for businesses that put extra attention on satisfying their customers with digital platforms.
Hello, my name is Nolan, a sophomore history major here at Waldorf University, originally from Brainerd, Minnesota. My methods paper is on the topic of transcendentalism in America and how the religious philosophy has and continues to shape the American conscience. For those of you who don't know, transcendentalism is an idealist religious movement stemming from the early 19th century with writers such as Henry David Thoreau and Ralph Waldo Emerson pushing this idea that humans can reach their full physical, mental, and spiritual potential only when they immerse themselves into the natural world. Along with this, transcendentalist philosophers also believe that it is through nature that one connects themselves with the divine being behind the creation of the world. Now, I decided to write on this topic for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, I have found these transcendentalist ideals to be truths in my own journey on this earth. Echoing the words of John Muir, I would rather be in the mountains thinking about God than in a church thinking about the mountains. As a practicing Christian, I find this to be extremely evident in my own walk in the Christian faith. The second reason I chose this topic has to do with the seemingly increasing number of historians claiming that transcendentalist philosophies have been somewhat lost in this modern world, and that the morals behind the movement have been eclipsed by the long shadow of history. In this paper, I aim to argue just that, by analyzing the conservation and preservation movements of the late 19th century and examining modern texts written in the last 20 years. I intend to resolve this argument by claiming that transcendentalist values have been present in American minds ever since their conception, and that they will continue to be for years to come.
My name is Cade. I'm a freshman education major from Buffalo Center, Iowa. My paper is about Civil War field medicine and its flaws that costed many Americans at the time their lives. I chose this topic because I've always liked the Civil War, and the stories that I've heard about amputations and other injuries steered me into doing further research on this particular topic as well as others. I broke my paper down into 4 sections, each with 3 subsections. I have amputation, anesthesia, sanitation, and illness. Each of those sections are broken down into how its field looked before, during, and after the Civil War. I learned that there was a lot of dangerous stuff involving military medicine at the time, other than just not having proper technology. There was a lack of knowledge amongst field doctors and surgeons, and the lack of proper supplies limited their practices tremendously.